All right, y'all. What's up? Officially recording, we're rolling. Today is all about the nervous system. And I'm sure even just today, we've all had our nervous systems tested. And can we, you know, go out on a limb, get stressed for good, for bad, anything in between? And then can we regulate ourselves to come back down? Um, just to give you a little insight, as I said earlier before I hit record, we're staying at my in-laws right now. The AC went out and grateful for them. They had AC people out here working on the upstairs because that's where we're staying right now. And they had to put in a whole new AC unit, which is terrible. But also thank God they could do that. Long story short, Vera boycotted her nap. She's one of these that has FOMO. And when there's like all new people coming in and out, we tried to nap on grandma's bed, but there's too many things in there that are new. So her nervous system was going off, mine was going off, probably didn't help. So yeah, that was tested today. And I thought about all of this. um, but before we go on, there are so many misconceptions out there that you can outwork birth or you can out fitness labor. If you're just super fit, you'll be fine. And for me, that's a big red flag, especially for somebody that may be training in that mindset, or somebody that's not really addressing things that are in their closet, meaning like metaphorically, emotional closet, because we can only expand at the capacity of our nervous system. And our nervous system, like as we explore the range of motion of our nervous system through any chapter inside of the motherhood transition, whether it be trying to conceive, like how some of y'all shared with me that you're in that chapter, whether it be pregnancy, labor, birth, that first, oh my gosh, those first 2 weeks postpartum, y'all, I felt like my nervous system right during birth went to the ethers and then finally like just shattered everywhere and then like came back in those first 2 weeks postpartum. And I really felt like, oh my God, like my nervous system just was like, that was a big, I don't even know if it wasn't a wake up call because I'd seen it on so many new moms, but to experience was a whole nother level. And then motherhood, like my baby girl turns 2 this week, and your nervous system, your range of motion of your nervous system is constantly adapting, evolving, being tested. Um, and I want you to have those tools and the insight so that you can lead your life, so that you can have a mother-led, that's what I believe sovereign means, a mother-led birth experience, a mother-led, parenting journey, a mother-led pregnancy. So let's get into it. Can y'all see my screen? Because sometimes I have trouble with Zoom and it doesn't. Yes, great. Okay. At any time, if the Zoom or the slideshow freezes, somebody unmute yourself and holler at me. Before I move on, I want to let you know that I'm Lindsay. I know I got some new faces here. I am the creator, the founder, the the person behind the screen with BirthFit. I am a doctor of chiropractic. I am a birth doula. Well, let's call me a semi-retired birth doula now. I am a strength and conditioning coach, probably semi-retired. At one point, I was very engulfed in the fitness space. I owned a CrossFit gym in Venice, California with my ex. Um, I worked at 2 different birth centers in Los Angeles. So I worked under a nurse midwife and a professional midwife. So I got to see the different lenses of more medical versus traditional, and then my chiropractic hat. And so out of those different worlds, right, that's where BirthFit was born in 2013. And it started as a blog. It was a blog and so like Instagram, honestly. And you could scroll all the way back to Instagram in the days, and there are some unfiltered, hilarious photos. But that's where we kind of took off. And then I started doing live seminars in 2017, in 2018, and 2019. And then boom, 2020 hit and everything changed and we went all online. So what do we do? I want to serve women to be in the best optimizing, like best shape. And when I say best shape, and that's why I caught myself, but in the most optimal version of yourself. And that starts with your biology. That starts with optimizing your biology to live in congruence with your biology as God designed you, as nature intended. And I do that through the BIRTHFIT Blueprint membership. That is our prenatal and postpartum membership. Through the coach course. So I coach, teach, show other coaches, trainers, chiropractors, PTs, how to integrate BIRTHFIT into their practices, their businesses. And then we also have obviously the programs, which I call them the a la carte programs. So you basically join the BIRTHFIT community, any one of those avenues, and that you're basically in the BIRTHFIT community. Now, if you're on the newsletter, if you're attending this free masterclass, so I send out a newsletter once a week. Hopefully you get that, because I probably wouldn't see you here if you did not. And I, do my best to not only share from my personal life, but also, some pearls of wisdom that you can take away. And then that's the newsletter. Masterclass, I try to host one masterclass, free masterclass a month, so that you can have some tools to walk away with. And then, yeah, we got these offerings here. I will give you a heads up. September and October, there will not be a free masterclass because the coach course live calls are kicking off. So I will be fully in that and fully in the Blueprint membership. And there are just too many live calls happening. So I put a pause. We will circle back with live free masterclass calls in November and December. So just make note. And I thought this was going to change. There we go. So by the end of this, I want you to just have a beautiful, a beautiful overview of the nervous system. I want you to be able to, tell, let's say if you have a 5-year-old or a 2-year-old, like I do, be able to tell a small child in generic language what the nervous system is, what it does, maybe how you can optimize function. If you walk away today, taking away one way to optimize function, probably with breath, like that's the easiest thing to remember, you could influence your child. Like my little girl knows now, like, okay, when I say inhale, we breathe. When I say exhale, we let out a long audible exhale. And we usually do that as we're laying down for nap or sleep. And that's kind of like part of our routine now. It's pretty adorable. Also, maybe a little bit nerdy, who cares? What hinders optimal function? And this might actually be different for each of us. So under this bullet point, it might be worth another bullet point saying, knowing what your parameters are, what hinders optimal function for you, and what gets you back on track. At the end of this, there's some misconceptions, and I hope to blow your mind with those. There's about 4 of them. And then where we stand today with some of my 2 cents. Okay, so before we move on, I want to touch on circadian rhythm and its influence of the nervous system, because we cannot go on and not, when there's a talk about nervous system, if somebody does not address circadian rhythm, then they're missing a huge like piece of the pie there. And as somebody that's like, I consider myself a nervous system focused chiropractor, and with that means I'm going to respect and honor the nervous system in my practice. I don't practice right now. I sold my half of the practice to my wonderful business partners. It's still there in New Braunfels. They're crushing it. Willow House, if you're in the New Braunfels, Texas area, go see doctors Matt and Bria. But nervous system focused, honor, respect, clear interference, open up the channels, get out of the way, allow the body to do its thing. One of the philosophies that we believe in chiropractic is the power that made the body can heals the body, top down, inside out. All of that is like language for the nervous system. So the circadian literally refers to the natural rhythm of the processes inside of our bodies that are governed by light and energy. And if you think about that, so we have this nervous system, the brain, the spinal cord, you saw that, that little image before. And then the peripheral nerves that go out through the arms, through the legs, out through the rib cage, things like that. And they influence our bodies. And then from the brain and different parts of the brain, we've got hormones and physiology happening. I'm not going to try to go down, use too many big words here, but what tells these things what to do and when? What is it? For one, and we're getting to, I'll pull up a slide in a minute, but there's a process called neuroception in which our bodies pick up on an external environment. And this is super critical because that external environment includes the light. So this light right here probably has LED light bulbs in there because everybody, there was a push for LED energy saving. Yeah, nobody's energy bill went down, but LED is not the best. Blue light is not the best. Blue light is like the light that's the sun is making at 12 p.m., highest point of the day. But y'all, there is a huge spectrum of light, a huge wavelength of light, and we need to get all those different wavelengths. And the way our body picks up on those different wavelengths of light is through our naked eye. Through our naked eye, no contacts, no glasses. And for those of you that are in your trying to conceive chapter, one of the best things you can do, and this is like low-hanging fruit, is get outside in the morning. And if you can watch the sunrise with your naked eye, that is going to be the signal. It's going to come in through your retina. I'm not even going to tell you about the photoreceptors or the light proteins in there, but they pick up the light wavelength that signals, okay, that's that wavelength. They channel it to the SCM, which is the suprachiasmatic nucleus in your brain. And that signals to the brain, to the rest of our bodies, what processes to do and when. So that literally starts and influences your thyroid hormone. That's one of the best things you can do, is get that morning light to influence the health of your thyroid. And thyroid health is huge for conception because it is responsible for basically the energy and metabolism in that whole first trimester. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole anymore, but get up 6:30 a.m., whatever time the sun rises in your area, and get that light on your naked eyeball. And then if you can, do about 10 minutes every hour, especially if you work from home or you're sitting behind a computer. If you're stuck inside, see if you can open a window. Like I got a window open right now to try to like counteract this faux light that's going on. And the other thing is, get as much of your body exposed to sunlight as possible. Build up your solar callus. So right now we're in August and we're at the peak, the tail end of summer. So our calluses should be pretty good. But think about this for next year, as we go into hibernation mode, embrace the seasons, but still get out there. As spring comes about, March, April, start exposing more parts of your body to sun so that you're building up that solar callus. No, I go off on tangents. And the other thing I want to say here before we go down the rabbit hole is, if you're somebody that has, tendency to burn in the past, look at the amount of processed foods you're eating, limit those, and see if you can add any vitamin E in there. Vitamin E tends to be a great antioxidant to help with processed foods and, you know, really process things in your body. And I've seen it, be a great supplement for those that have been fair skinned or not a great diet. They're transitioning, working on the whole wellness thing. So just think about that. Um, okay, so there's circadian rhythm related to the motherhood transition, trying to conceive, thyroid, boom, tells our body what to do, processes what to do and when. That's all influenced by the light environment, and therefore the energy creates the energy of ourselves, influences the mitochondria, and mitochondria is passed down from the maternal side. The other cool thing is that melatonin, which is an endogenous hormone antioxidant, rises throughout pregnancy. This fourth bullet here, it works synergistically with oxytocin. So I sunbathe, belly out, boobs out as much as I could not, offend my neighbors during pregnancy. And your belly, I've read this fact the other day, I shared this in the newsletter just this week. It grows out literally because it's a solar receptor. The placenta is a solar receptor. It's receiving light, and you are passing that information on to your baby. The more we can harvest this melatonin and be in sync, like with have an optimized circadian rhythm in pregnancy, I guarantee the smoother labor will go. Because when we have melatonin stored, that's going to work synergistically with oxytocin to have smooth, efficient uterine contractions. It's also, like, if you think about it, one reason why a lot of labor and birth happen or start at nighttime. That's melatonin, oxytocin. They're just jamming. They're just we're reading this book right now. Vera loves this book. It talks about cuddle bugs. But those two, the melatonin and oxytocin, are like cuddle bugs on the uterus. Yeah, so think about that. When you optimize your light environment, you're utilizing the full capacity of neurotransmitters for birth. This includes everything from the endocannabinoid system to GABA, glutamate, endorphins, like everything that your body naturally produces. And we'll just stop there. We'll do that. We'll move on because we could spend the rest of the day here on this slide. And we're not going to. So, y'all, at BIRTHFIT, we view the nervous system with a polyvagal theory lens. And I want to introduce Stephen Porges. This is a lovely picture of him. If you don't know him, here he is. He's done a ton of research on the polyvagal theory and the nervous system. A cool random fact is that his wife has done a lot of research on the hormone oxytocin, which is kind of cool. So he started like sharing his work with the world around 1994. So it's relatively new. And if you think about it, I like to know history and kind of like know what was happening along the same time frame. 93 was when the World Wide Web was released. So if you're like me, you did not grow up with an iPad, you did not grow up with access to the internet. In our classes, we could sign up for computer time and go play the Oregon Trail. We still had to go look up things in the encyclopedias. We finally had internet come college. I was I went to Texas A&M University, whoop. And my senior year was the year that I could sign up for Facebook. So that gives you insight into my history. 93 World Wide Web. 93 was the same year that OJ fled in the white Bronco. I'm sure you all remember that. And I don't remember anything else, but 93 was the first year that a randomized controlled trial for an epidural was done, but it was stopped because there was they didn't like the outcomes. Basically, there's majority of the women ending up in a cesarean birth. So anyways, 94, not that long ago. And understanding the polyvagal theory gives you a more compassionate lens with the nervous system. If you're in the serving world, the service world, treating others, like you show up, I promise you, once you know this, you show up from a more compassionate place. So it's super cool. The polyvagal lens basically looks at the nervous system. I love this little graphic over here as three distinct service circuits, levels, whatever you want to call them, not two distinct halves like the traditional view was. So you probably grew up similar to me, where it's like sympathetic, parasympathetic. Well, the polyvagal is like boom, 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 three different levels. Let's think of it like that. And it's simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. So we're going to move on a little bit. So with the autonomic nervous system, your body is always prioritizing survival, always doing something for you. And I want you to know that, because it's easy to get pissed or angry with our bodies in various chapters. We can get frustrated that we didn't get pregnant yesterday. We can get pissed that, birth didn't go as planned. We can get pissed that there's so many examples, but when you look back and reflect back on the experience or the situation or whatever that experience was that pissed you off or frustrated you or triggered you, I promise you, your body was prioritizing survival. It was doing things for you and not to you. So I like to tell people this: the universe is always doing something for you. It's not doing things to you. It's not doing things, against you, in spite of you. Trust me. The universe wants you to succeed. Your nervous system wants you to survive, wants you to thrive. However, it only knows what it's been programmed, what's been imprinted on it. So that's why I say things like, we birth how we live. Because it doesn't start, we don't birth how we live in that moment. It starts practices months, years before. I think it took me 10 years, because I started BirthFit in 2023. I didn't give birth to my first daughter, my daughter that's turning 2 this week, until August of 2023. So 10 years later, I think I had to do so much unlearning, so much dissolving, so much relearning, imprinting, so that I could have the peaceful, blissful birth that I did. Because if Lindsay, 10 years prior, 30-year-old Lindsay, would have had a birth then, I promise you, it would not have been that blissful on the back porch thing. I was a neurotic OCD. I was not optimizing my circadian rhythm, that's for sure. So within a polyvagal theory lens, we look at 3 different circuits, levels. We have the first level, the ventral vagal complex. You don't have to remember any of this. This is also known as the social engagement system. So if there is a threat, a perceived threat, based on neuroception, we pick up on the environment, there's a perceived threat, then our body is going to prioritize survival, send signals, elicit a state shift through physiological actions happening in our body, and it's going to go from there. So the polyvagal theory is based on cranial nerve 10, and that exits our brain, and one piece of the nerve comes around and innervates our face, our head and neck, our throat, And another branch goes all the way down, innervates around our lungs, our digestive bits here, and all the way down and touches the cervix. So I want you to think of this with the social engagement system. So for those that, I'm just gonna put this out there, you can take it whatever you want. For those that were in COVID times and they had to give birth in the hospital with no support person, or maybe one support person only, the social engagement system picks up on facial expressions, voice tone, weird noises in the room. So if this is all they saw with people that were strangers, they're only seeing their eyes instead of, hey, how are you doing today? That's not going to signal safety. At least it's not in my body, to somebody. Just something to think about. And then especially for children that were exposed to a lot of that during that time. So if the social engagement system, if you cannot negotiate, chat your way out of things, then it's going to go down to the next branch, the next circuit, the next level. And that is the sympathetic nervous system. So we went from the ventral vagal complex on the vagus nerve, and now we're just shifting over to the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system mainly resides in this like thoracic spine area, mid-back area, and it's designed for movement, mobilization, action, defense, fight or flight, as you might know. And when we're in this space, this is what might be muscle tension or increased heart rate. It's brilliant. Our nervous system is brilliant. So if we can't fight or get out of that perceived threat, then we're going to go down to the third branch, the dorsal vagal complex. And this is the unmyelinated part of the vagus nerve. So the more primal branch of the vagus nerve. And the function of this is for immobilization, conservation of energy, conservation for survival. This is what we see as disconnect. And this is, those stories that you hear about where maybe somebody was jogging and they were assaulted and they didn't fight or flight, or they thought they would have done more, but they just froze and they kind of disassociated from their body. That's their body doing that for survival. Women do this in birth when they've tried everything else. And that's sometimes that's the way they escape that traumatic birth. Here's another image, if you want to look at this. And this I pulled off the internet. It's great. All right. Okay, so let me make sure we're still good. I mentioned neuroception earlier, and this is the process by which your unconsciousness picks up on a threat. It's that your body is doing this before you even become aware. Like I said, our body is brilliant. It's super smart. And this is a cool, fun fact right here. We develop our own unique map of the world by which each subconscious is programmed from womb to 7 years old. So you can be like me and obsess about this sometimes with your kid, but also let it go. Or I should say, and let it go sometimes. Our nervous system, each one of our nervous systems operates within its own unique programmed range of motion. So whatever was programmed for you by 7 years old is going to be different than me, different from the woman next to you. And that's why it takes, like I said, some unlearning to happen in order to really explore your range of motion of your nervous system, maybe to take, a step back in order to take 2 steps forward. All right, this is a diagram that we made here at BIRTHFIT, and I love this one because it's just super simple. It might not be entirely accurate, but if you look at it, you can see, okay, it goes basically from the top down. And on one side of the nervous system, on this drawing image, our bodies are in a perceived threat state 20% of the time. On the other side, we're designed to be in safety, in that health, growth, restoration state about 80% of the time. We have to have a perceived threat of some sort, that working out is a perceived threat. And hopefully for all of us, it's a good perceived threat. Um, something to challenge the system so that we can evolve, so that we can adapt and evolve. We're not supposed to be living in that perceived threat more than 20% of the time. So when we start having that chronic stress, we're not in that health, growth, restoration, safety state. So you see that a lot, especially with, I would say, women that are trying to conceive, hitting obstacle, or, women that have a really, I would call it a high risk pregnancy. They usually come into it from a perceived threat. Maybe they had challenges conceiving, and it just carried over into pregnancy and then into birth and beyond. I see that a lot whenever, like when I was in the office and kiddos would come in, um, with sensory issues, gut issues, things like that, and you explore how they were brought into this world. And the perfect storm of antibiotics, ear infections, sensory issues, ADHD doesn't just start there. It starts prior to conception, and that's carried over into pregnancy, into the birth experience, and into that child and the first couple years of life. So anyways, this I like this diagram. I think this is super simple. This also shows you that, for instance, the sympathetics, mobilization, it's not entirely a negative thing. And that's one of the misconceptions I'll share with you later on. Like it's a positive thing. We don't have to view it as negative always. All right, so connection equals safety, right? So I don't know where, like, I hate to keep bringing up the COVID thing and the shenanigans of I call it the pandemic, but if you don't like it, you probably should not be here, because that's where I stand. But I did not love how everybody became isolated. Because if you look at history, if you look at the health of any tribe, any culture, anywhere, the more connected the people are, the healthier they are, the safer they feel, the less mental health issues they have. Connection is the foundation of health, and we're designed to be in relationship with people, with community. So write that down. Social engagement is crucial to regulation and adaptation. It's also, like, might I add, crucial for accountability and, yes, adaptation, but helping people grow, helping young children, adolescents grow into adults. Um, People want to experience love. They want to feel like they belong. Look at any child. They want to feel like they belong in a family. This is one reason why, if you read that book, Hunt, Gather, Parent, if you can engage your child with chores early on, they feel like they're contributing. They feel like they're part of the family. When we feel grounded in love, our nervous system relax and we are free to be our authentic self in that moment. And when we feel free, like we're not going to feel free unless we feel safe. When we feel safe, we can relax into that freedom. Then we naturally explore and expand. And that's what we need for birth, y'all. So feeling safe physiologically allows access to our higher brain functions. When our nervous system detects safety, that's in our prefrontal cortex. And these advanced brain regions start to go online. They start to function optimally. Think about executive function, problem solving, creativity, y'all. Creativity goes hand in hand with conception, with creating life, with birth, with being stepping into the feminine, with being a woman. Empathy, social connection, those are higher brain functions. Learning, integration of new information, emotional regulation. If you think about this, maybe reflect back on times or chapters of your life where you did not feel entirely safe. Oftentimes, this, is right there side by side with money issues, financial issues. That's a big one I see come up. And so the groundedness, the stability is not there. So you don't feel safe. Then we start acting, reacting, and none of the creativity has gone out the window because we feel like our choices are limited. So when we don't feel safe, we're not tapping into these things. Excuse me. All right, let me grab a sip of water. When we're in a threat response, I have to write this down, so I want y'all to remember this. These higher brain functions become less accessible because our brain and our body is prioritizing survival. So this means just automatically like when I learn stuff, I shift it to birth mode. What does it mean in a birth setting? If a person cannot feel safe, they're not going to make informed decisions. So if they do feel safe, they're able to make more informed, intuitively guided choices. When they do feel safe, they can communicate their needs effectively. When they don't feel safe, it's hard to communicate. They start to shut down. They start to go inward. They might dissociate, like we talked about. When they feel safe, they're able to be present and engaged, which is so, so important for embracing contractions. I think Erin was the one that told me she's 3 weeks away from her due date. You have to go towards each contraction, welcome each contraction, stay in the moment. You are not, that contraction is not more powerful than you because that contraction is you. So if you can welcome that contraction and dissolve it with your energy, with your breath, and breathe baby down, you are staying present and engaged. Once that contraction passes, you let it go. You say, thank you for serving me. Let it go. And then you welcome, you take a breath, a cleansing breath, and then welcome the next contraction. When a person feels safe, she can access her intuitive knowledge. I mentioned this earlier, y'all. But this is so, so important. Why practices, like why you have these lifestyles in play. So they're like your bumper plates, right? Because if shit's going crazy, right? Like at 36 weeks, my water started leaking. I could have gone, oh my God, let's go to the hospital. But I didn't freak out because I had these practices in play. I went, said my prayers, moved a little bit, and my intuition said, nope, we're good. We're just good. When you feel safe, collaboration happens. And this may be with care providers, this may be with traditional birth keepers, whatever. All right, so I'll share with you some big criticisms of the polyvagal theory that is oversimplified, and obviously it's still experimental, but why it hasn't been debunked right here. Ongoing empirical support, clinical utility, evolutionary consistency, continual refinement. Like Porges still researches. He has something called the Polyvagal Theory Institute. You can go look it up. He's still jamming over there. Integration of diverse research. So he includes neuroscience, psychology, evolutionary biology, developmental studies, all under the polyvagal theory. Super cool. All right. So those that, like I mentioned this earlier, those that now look at the nervous system with the polyvagal theory lens tend to operate with these things in mind. They know the importance of creating an optimal environment where people feel safe, even if it's like a one-on-one therapy situation. They recognize that the how of care is just as important as, the actual process or the therapeutic dose of something. Like how you administer it is pretty important. Um, those that see this through the polyvagal theory lens also recognize that the person receiving the care, they have to be open to it. They have to have that ability to receive. I get the question all the time from coaches. It's like, how do you approach a woman that doesn't want to modify her butterfly pull-ups in the CrossFit gym? Something like that, that doesn't want to stop doing muscle ups. Well, that person is not ready to receive care. That's simple. Don't waste your time. Like, you'll be there. The door is open. Let that woman know that you are ready for her, and you can share so much with her when she's ready. Therapists, healers, they prioritize connection, relationship, as they know that's the foundation to care. Solely providing procedures, like I talked about earlier, it's in the how, like how you administer this stuff. And y'all, a person has to feel safe in order to basically share what's on their heart, be vulnerable, and obviously that's necessary for birth. All right. In the context of the motherhood transition, creating safety isn't just about physical, medical safety, but emotional and physiological safety that allows the birthing woman to remain in a state where she can access her full power and resources and tap into her God-given power. I would say this is true of conception. This is true for growing a baby, because each trimester looks a little bit different. The first trimester, you're setting up these practices. The first trimester can be a hot mess of anxiety if you don't have feet on the ground, a grounded sense, safety, because you're worried, right? Like it's new, it's different. Oh, there's so much that can happen. But yeah, safety. All right, so I want to share with you, oh, I put these in here, birth scenarios with the polyvagal theory lens. This is optimal ventral vagal support, birth scenario number 1. Birth environment supports safety. So the support person, whether it be the husband, the partner, and a doula, they're connected. There's co-regulation happening. Look at this little image over here. The husband's holding mama's hand. The birthing woman is able to relax and expand and open, literally open up her yoni, the portal to God. Baby can come out because she's got a relaxed space where the vagus nerve innervates. Her jaw is nice and relaxed physically. She feels safe. The part of the vagus nerve that touches the cervix relaxes. Her cervix is able to open and relax. It's beautiful. What are her tools? Breath, sound, and movement. This is why I say with each breath, you are calling in God, Yahweh, for each contraction, and you can make noise. And this is also why, this is why movement's so clutch. We practice movement so that you can feel safe in these positions and they're not foreign come labor or birth. Tabletop, child's pose, those positions are great for supporting vagal tone in birth. All right, and then here's a threat response where your body's right here prioritizing safety. Maybe there's a transfer to the hospital or something traumatic happens in the hospital, but this triggers a sympathetic or even a dorsal vagal activation. So sympathetic, everything, cervix either starts to close again or it stops dilating, tension up here, tension in the jaw. Dorsal vagal might disassociate or, I've seen this, or women said this, with their doula. They're like, I just felt like the woman was like not in there, like she was looking off into space. Honey, that woman is disassociating. Bring her back with breath, sound, and movement and connection. Hold her hand. All right, so this is what I mentioned earlier. You've got to create a self-assessment and use it at every chapter of your life so that you can recognize when your body has a state shift, when your nervous system elicits a state shift, right? Because the nervous system, through neuroception, picks up on clues in the external environment. So the subconscious is already going. But then we can pick up on, oh my gosh, do we have a dry mouth? Is our heart rate, going like this? Are we sweating palms, things like that? Start to pay attention to these things. Have we not taken a breath? Like, are we holding our breath? That's a big one. Pay attention to your personal triggers. Know what your resources are. And then this is how I like to think of it. Like, am I expanding or am I contracting? When you're able to expand, when you feel safe in your authentic self mode versus contracting. Journal about it, reflect in it, keep notes in your phone, but start to pay attention to it, and reset that circadian rhythm every day. I'm going to leave you with 4 big misconceptions. Like I said earlier, the sympathetic is not just fight or flight or a negative thing. Sympathetic, think of it also as expanding, growth, adaptation. You're literally gaining fitness. That's super cool. Another thing, somatic embodiment practice is something you do and or not. It's not only yoga or a sound bath or gong vibes. So a lot of people come into our world, the BIRTHFIT world, thinking that they need to develop this whole somatic embodiment practice in order to regulate their nervous system. Y'all, 5x5 back squats can be a somatic practice. Lifting weights can be a somatic practice. A somatic practice is not a box you check. It's how you do things. It's how you move. It's how you show up. It's how you transition from point A to B. It is in the intention behind your actions. All right. A regulated nervous system is not necessarily calm and cool. A regulated nervous system refers to one that can effectively respond to stress or threat and return to a state of balance. So if you're according to the polyvagal theory, institute, the gurus over there, a regulated nervous system is characterized by flexibility and resilience of the nervous system. So basically what I said earlier, the ability to appropriately move between states based on the environment's demands and then returned back to a harmonious state when that stressor is removed. There's appropriate activation and deactivation. There's a window of tolerance, having a sufficient capacity to experience both activation and calm without becoming dysregulated. This is a big one, y'all, especially if you're in a marriage. Can you get triggered? Take a breath and sit in that window, that window of tolerance. I'm working on it always. Effective neuroception. When you pick up on environmental cues, based on our first 7 years of life, some of us might need to revisit, are our actions or how we perceive those things appropriate? Social engagement capacity. Are we able to use connection as a resource of co-regulation? Babies need connection. The mother-baby dyad is a phrase for a reason. They are a hitchhiker on mama's nervous system, at least for the first 9 to 18 months of life. Self-regulation tools, have internal assessment tools, and then homeostatic efficiency. All right, the last misconception, healing the nervous system takes a lot of work. Y'all, it doesn't have to take a lot of work. It can take a little or a lot, just depends on each of us. What I have found in my work is that it's usually simple Simple work, simple steps, simple things, but it's not easy because we've developed these habits and we're only human. We mess up, things are messy, we go back to default mode. I think it takes something like 22 days or of doing something like every day for it to become a habit. Some tools that work for me may not work for you, and vice versa. I want you to, pick and choose, like take whatever medicine from today works for you and integrate it, implement it into your life. Um, it might require more time and space than actual work. And I say work in the form of like effort, energy. You might just need to slow down for 3 months and not work, like turn your brain off. All right, practical applications beyond birth, parenting with nervous system awareness, woo, relationships and communications, hello, marriages. If you're a therapist or a coach or a chiropractor or a PT or a midwife or a birth keeper, trauma-informed care approaches, that's what I consider a polyvagal theory. Educational settings, teachers that have a polyvagal theory lens, oh, brilliant. And healthcare applications. So, as many of you know, I'm Lindsay. You can follow me on these social channels if you don't already. Also, please check out our YouTube page. Follow us. There's lots of good stuff there. I'm releasing a podcast once a month right now. So there have been two, a July and August release. And then if you haven't tried any of our programs, try the a la carte version, webinar 20. And then if you would like to sign up for the prenatal postpartum blueprint membership, let me know, respond to the email, and we'll get you in there. But let me see where we're at. Okay, woo! Let me know what kind of questions you got. I'm right at the buzzer beater. So much deconditioning, yes. I totally get that. So let me know if anything came up for you. You can throw it in the chat box. I'll hang out for at least 5 minutes. I know I threw a ton of information your way, and this will be emailed out to you, the recording and the PowerPoint. So if you watch it, listen to it again, and something else comes up, please let me know. Just respond back. You can reply back to the email. And Kat always makes sure I get these. So I hope that was helpful and you take away some good stuff. Thank you. You're so welcome. Absolutely. Take the medicine with you. Use what you can. All right, I'm going to hit stop recording.